wanted to talk a little bit about Al Foster and about this solo that you're going to be working with. I hope that you stay with this series and work with it from the beginning to the end. I've recorded it at a slower vein for you to get started, and then you'll see it and hear it in its more original tempo, and then you'll hear me break things down within the solo and try to teach what Al was actually thinking about when he was playing different parts of the solo. Now, Al Foster was born in 1944, and he recorded this solo when he was 16 years old, when he was playing with Blue Mitchell on The Thing to Do. And this was really impressive to me to hear somebody with such an amazingly mature sound at such a young age. Al continued to play with Miles Davis after Miles put together his electric quintets and quartets and things like this, and up until 1985, I believe. And he is an incredible musician who's continued to play even today. So if you get a chance to hear Al live, I would definitely say grab that one. So I'm going to play Foster's Fair for you slow at first, and then I'm going to play it fast, and then I'll start to break down some of the phrases so that you can practice those individually. So that was slow, and now I'm going to play it fast, more like the recording tempo. And I'd encourage you to stop at any time listening to me play it and go to the recording and listen to Al play it, and then come back and learn it playing it along with me. In Foster's Fair, the solo that I just played, I've taken an Al Foster favorite of mine off of a tune called Fungi Mama. And it's actually off a Blue Mitchell record. And you can find him playing this solo. And so I've tried to approximate what Al was playing in this situation. And this particular solo is based off of a calypso groove. So the hi-hat is on 1 and 3 the whole time, and sometimes the bass drum joins him, and sometimes he drops it out. And unlike the typical solo where a drummer always hits his cymbal, backing it with his bass drum, Al likes to play his cymbals as shimmers and colors. So about midway through the solo, you might hear that section where I'm hitting the cymbals without the bass drums. On Foster's Fair, the whole idea of the solo comes from the tune Fungi Mama, which was a calypso. Now, on a regular calypso beat, it's based off of either, if it's in cut time, it's based off of 8th notes. And some people think of it as 16ths, but it sounds like this. What Al did that was so cool is after the head, it was brilliant. He found a way to go to the ride cymbal and still give us that feeling of the moving 8th note. But he did this. Then he put the marching feet underneath it, that's in calypso. Got that going, and then he added the tom-toms to give it movement. All the while, his right hand kept doing the same thing. It kept going to the bell on the upbeat, which pushes the music forward without rushing. So in Foster's Fair, when he finally gets to that middle section where he's playing the toms against his ride cymbal and the ground pulse in his feet, you'll notice that he's not really overdoing his tom-toms. Everything is blended and balanced. And as I play this solo, you'll notice I'm sort of mimicking what he does on the record, in fact, very much so. And that is getting this a little bit more complicated or a little more complex as I go, pushing it over the bar line with more complex phrasing. So let me play the first part of this and let you sort of listen and watch what I'm talking about. So I'll start out very simply in the left hand. So see how I got it more complex, more active, and still giving that and upbeat, as I was doing all of those other things with the left hand. All the while, the bass and the hi-hat were just keeping it grounded. Okay, when you start working on Foster's Fair, it's really important that you listen to the tune a lot. Fungi Mama. And if you know, and you can sing that tune, then you constantly have that going on inside of your head when you're playing this accompaniment pattern. Now this is sort of a sing-song accompaniment pattern, and it really rolls nicely with the tune. So many young drummers seem to get a book like this, and all they want to do is learn the notes. And they get the metronome, they turn it on, and they play all the right notes, and then they go to perform it, and they wonder, why did this not sound like the record? Why did it not sound like Al Foster? And my retort to that usually is, well, did you listen to the record a lot? Because I like to talk to my students about the fact that you have to listen as much as you practice. So that has to be in equal parts. So when I'm playing this, I can hear that dancing in my head already, and I'm already singing the tune as if I had the whole tune playing right in front of me. One of the hardest things about this solo for me is when you go from the first section where you're basically playing accompaniment like so. You see, you have suddenly your bass drum drops out, so you have no bottom. And now you're going from a nice straight eighth pattern or quasi straight eighth pattern that has a little bit of a lilt to it, but you're going to triplets. And you have no help from your feet except for your hi-hat that stays in like this. So if you look at measure 26, where I'm going to start with the pickup, that's when things really get dicey in the solo. 1, 2, ready. Now you have to really prepare yourself for that, because suddenly everything that you've been doing technically changes. And now you're into the full-blown part of this solo. Let's talk about the flams for a minute, because at 34, many times players might try to play a really closed flam, like that. And that really makes us tighten up when we do that. So in jazz, a lot of times, we tend to open those flams up and let them actually breathe with the phrase that we're trying to play. So you might notice that when I get there, coming from the measure before, they're much more open. So I'm approaching. I'm really letting the sticks bounce and just going with that phrase, with that syncopated rhythm on that phrase. So don't think that there's only one way to play a flam because maybe somebody told you this is how you play a flam. There are many different applications to a flam. Let me make one reference to this. If I went like this, that sounds one way. It's another way. Finally, totally open. So experiment with that. Listen to Al Foster on the record and see if you can come up with a way that you could put a slur line over that syncopated figure even though you're playing flams. Okay, let's talk about the middle section of Foster's Fair where it has all of the triplets. One of the things that you want to make sure that you do is break down the stickings and maybe make up some exercises for yourself so that you can practice those. Let's take example the second line at 34 where it has all of those triplets. Well, that might not be that hard at this tempo in a regular triplet format. But if you have to play with finesse and touch, and then suddenly you have to start with your left hand, and you're a right-handed player, then you have to practice these little stickings and 3-beat cross rhythms, maybe on one drum. Let me give you an example. The first one starts with a left hand 3-beat cross rhythm, 3 triplets, and then 2 triplets to make a 2-measure pattern. So you've got with the left hand, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right. So you have to just practice that pattern. And maybe half that tempo in the beginning. So then you can begin to put it on the drum set. But without pounding, just letting the sticks bounce on the head and trying to use this fluid motion around the drum set. The next problem area is the third measure of that line, and I'm playing paradiddle diddles. Again, practice with the fluid style. And then finally, the last measure, you're playing not a paradiddle diddle, but you're playing a specific sticking. Because you have to get the left hand on the right tom at 42. It sounds really easy, but when you take the tempo up and you're playing it in the middle of a solo and you have one shot to get this, that's when it gets difficult. I'd like to really emphasize the fact that Al Foster was sort of a modern-day Max Roach. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Max Roach went to Juilliard and he got a degree in percussion, and he was a really fine timpanist. And if you study Max's solos, you find that aspect in his playing. The thing that drew me to Al Foster was that he does the same thing in this solo. He is really affecting this relaxed technique on his toms and snare, just like a great timpanist would. And so there's some sections of this where you have to be able to start with the correct hand. Most of the time it's the left hand, and us right-hand drummers love to start with the right hand. So if you look at 42, it's basically a 5-stroke roll with a snap at the end. Now if I play it slowly, then you can see just how my hands are moving around the drums. Sometimes we talk about this economy of motion because you won't see me, I hope, doing these arch-like sticking patterns. We call these the McDonald Golden Arches, and we want to stay away from that. So everything that I'm doing is trying to economize my motion while staying relaxed and fluid and moving around the drum set almost in the manner that a great timpanist would. If you've enjoyed these solos that we've been working on in Modern Jazz Solos for Drum Set, I would encourage you to check out my first book. It's called Jazz Solos for Drum Set Volume 1. This only contains 6 solos, but they're of the absolute masters that we all check out. Big Sid Catlett, Max Roach, Art Blakey, Philly Joe Jones, Elvin Jones, and Tony Williams. I know that you'll enjoy learning and listening to the vocabulary that you develop after working through these solos.